Hi guys, and welcome back to Crafty Quilting Designs. I hope you are well and everything is going really well for you in your life. So for those of you that are new here, thank you so much for joining me today. And for those of you who are my subscribers, welcome. Happy to see you, and I hope you're doing just fine. So today I have a really exciting project, and I know I say that it's exciting, and you know, every quilt that we make as quilters is always exciting because we're quite happy to do this process. So I thought about starting a scrap series, and so this is the first episode of this particular craft series. So last session, I should say, we had some trimmings left from our quilt that we made. We made a summer blossom quilt, and there was quite a lot of that trimmings left over. Also, you know, extra trimmings as well from the cuts that we actually did. Also, trimmings left over from the previous quilt and the previous quilt. As much as I do try to make my blocks as I go, I wanted to do something slightly different, and hence the reason why I thought about doing this series. So we're going to do a number of Scrappy series, but I thought we can try a different concept from it. So we will do normal blocks that we will do, but making them using scrap fabrics. Alright, so I have quite a lot of scraps in little bags and stuff. Well, I shouldn't say quite a lot because I'm quite good when it comes to the scraps. As you know, I make them and stack them on my little display tray. But what I also tend to do as well is cut some strips, and I've been thinking in my head for quite some time now what I want to do with some scraps, rather than just make random pieces together and make a block. My thought process is, you know, as I said, to make traditional blocks from them, you know, and so that's what we're going to do for this series. Yes, some of them will be random, but we will do traditional blocks, but make them in scrappy pieces. So our first one, which I already gave you a peek showing of from last tutorial, was this particular block here, and I have them just right to the side of me, was this particular block. Alright, and I just want to put it here so you can actually see it as well. So you can see some of my scraps already from my previous one. So this one was from the pinwheel star, because I used fat quarters for that, and I do remember that. I think that was the border for it. I think so, can't remember. This one is just some scraps that I had, as well as this spider cut, some scraps that I had also. Now what I tend to do sometimes with the scraps is, well, when we say scraps, sometimes we refer to scraps as little pieces of cuts from when we're cutting out for our blocks, or cutting for fabric, etc. Or when we stitch something together and we've got to rip it out and it's no longer good, and we'll toss it for scraps. However, for example, if I have something like this left over, yeah, to this particular size, I don't really refer to it as scraps. It's just leftover fabric. Alright, and so for these I have a few of them, and I've decided to try and use them up again within the scrap quilt, but using them in a formalized way rather than just cutting them into small pieces, or you know, using up your small scraps. So again, something like this, right? So it's a good piece of fabric that I can still get good proper usage out of. Also something like this one as well. And I have used this one in my previous quilt, and I think this is the last bit of it, so it's going to go this time. Alright, so that's basically it, really. Some of my things fell on the floor. So, but this is the block we're going to make with. So remember that with our trimmings, we had some half square triangles left. Alright, and I know this isn't the particular one that we had left, but I've cut some more. For whatever fabrics that I have, for example, things like this, I actually used it to make the extra cuts of fabric that I required to make my block. So as you can see, our block is a square within a square, or sorry, a square on point, or a diamond itself. So you can see it quite clearly there. However, the way how I put it together was using up the scraps, and I used the same concept to just cut the extra half square triangles to make this. However, what I also did as well is using these particular fabrics, whatever length of fabric that I had, I trimmed them down and made 4-inch squares. All right, so our blocks will require 4-inch squares and half square triangles. Okay, so this is what we're going to start off our series with. So we're going to make approximately 20 in total, 20 blocks in total. So this is going to use up a lot of scraps. Okay, and so we'll be doing this together, so I have no preconceived idea of how it's actually going to turn out. So every week we will work on the quilt. I presume that it should take us at least 3 weeks to complete this particular one. I have also got another block in mind for us to do, and I will show it to you now. And this is called a bow twist block, and so again it's made from scraps or leftover trimmings of fabric. All right, and so we're going to use all of our extra scraps again, because I know a lot of you out there got buckets and barrels and boxes of them. Okay, so so our next series is going to be this particular block. All right, but for now, and then I've got another one as well. So you see, I have been preparing this one here as well. So we're going to mix them. So the next quilt, we could probably mix this one and the so this is a 4-patch square within, or a 4-patch diamond square on point. All right. So we can possibly mix these two together, or we can go just the one, and we can decide that together as a team which one we want to go with. All right, but for today, for the first series, we're going to go with the diamond or the square on point, which I kind of love actually. Scrappy square on point. So that's going to be the name of our quilt, Scrappy square on point. So there you go. So I'm going to show you how to make it, and then we will take it from there. I will also show you how to cut the 4 inches squared, so that it's not too much of a stressful event for you. Also, what I would say is get yourself set up nicely by your table so that everything is next to you. So for example, if you know you're one of these people that needs to iron in between, get your iron already there, get your scraps there, so you pick out. Now normally for me, I don't usually iron when I'm doing a scrap quilt, only because my scraps are not usually that ruffled. I mean, I usually fold them, as you can see from my bag, which is dropping the floor. I'm not going to bend and pick it up. I usually fold them, and put them in the bag, or I stack them on that tray that I showed you previously when I make my blocks. So they're not really crumpled, so to speak, right? So I don't necessarily need to iron them. And even if I did, I wouldn't. I would usually iron once I've made the block. Now, if you do end up with lots of seams, I would say try not to worry about that, because we are sewing little pieces together. Another thing I needed to mention to you as well is that I do want us to, for example, our squares, if we do need to cut 2 different pieces of fabric together to make a 4-inch square, by all means, the better. All right. So if you know you haven't got enough fabric that it can give you an actual 4-inch square, by all means join 2 or 3 pieces together until you can get that square. What I also will be doing is also just sewing bits together to make a 10-inch square, and then cut them down into 4 so that I can use that for my half square triangles. All right, so again, the same applies. So if you know you've got big pieces of fabric like this, for scraps that you can actually use up, this is the time for this particular quilt, and it will come in really, really handy. All right, so that's it really. So let's get started, and I will show you how to make this block. It is very easy, and I will show you a few already that I have made. In fact, I can do that now actually while I have them here with me. So I'll throw that there because we don't need that one at the moment. So this is another one. All right, so you can see it's all scrappy. I'll move this to the side and I'll put them there. That's another one. And look at this one. I particularly like this one because I found some fabric that I can just, you know, fussy cut and get the house in the middle. It's so cute. I love that actually. All right, so that was really pretty. Again, this is another one. I think I showed you this one already, but never mind. And I think that's it. That's all I have done so far. We will need 4 of these for the actual block. Okay, and I haven't made the blocks as yet, so all I am doing right now is just making the squares. So when I say squares, I'm just referring to this, and when I say block, I'm referring to the entire 4 pieces of squares that makes up that one block. All right, so we will need 20 blocks in total, and I haven't done the mathies yet, but I will work that out and tell you, and I'm sure you can do that very much more quickly than me. So there you go. All right, so that's it. So let me show you how to make this particular square. Now again, some little pieces there, the scraps. Let me show you as well. I've got some more here, and look, the brown one, that particular one that I said that I had cut up already. Some pink ones there. So yeah, I have a few pieces. This one I love actually, and this, I think this is the last of it as well, because I had to join a few of them to make up the 4-inch squares. All right, so I hope you enjoy this series of making a scrappy square on point, and we'll see how it goes, and we will do this together, and of course we shall see the outcome. But I think it's going to be really, really fantastic. I've kind of fallen in love with scrappy quilts actually, so I think that's really nice. So I'm quite pleased with myself about that, because I was unsure about scrappy quilts, but they're so creative when you look at it, and I'm beginning to feel that it's a lot more creative than just cutting and piecing. So with this one, it's got to get all your color palettes right, and that's another thing we need to talk about actually, is when you're choosing your colors, and I know it's scrappy, but for me, I still want it to be uniform, and everything blends, and you know, it matches. And even if you're using contrasting colors throughout the quilt, you know, still try and pick up something within that. So for example, if I were to look at this here, you know, I don't know if you can see it there better, within this blue square here, there's light shadings of, you know, light purple. I can match the pink up with it, and I think that goes really nicely. So things like that is what I'm referring to. Even if I were to use this particular one here, yeah, it will still go really nicely. So just try and choose whereby you know it's going to work out. All right, and it just looks really beautiful. From the previous blossom quilt, where all of the original trimmings was from, I had lots of white, and I have used those. So as I said, I've made up some squares already, and I've used up all of those. So when I thought, let me just jump in and let you know right now what our project is going to be for the next 4 weeks or so, before I actually make all of these, you know. So this is just, you know, I wouldn't say mindless sewing, but relaxing sewing, so that you can make your scrappy quilts, and it comes out looking beautiful. So let me show you now how to make the square, and I shall lay out the 4 squares to make a block and show you what I've come up with so far, so that you have a connective idea of how to move forward. So our next tutorial after this will be most likely sewing those squares together, because I'm still going to be making mine after I log off from here. All right, because I've still got lots and lots to do still. And then again, even pieces like this, I'm going to use. I'm not going to be too fussy about not using certain ones. All right, so let's get started with that, and I shall let you know how it goes. Okay, I thought before I show you how to make the block, I shall just show you what I want you to do with the cutting down of the blocks. So I'm going to cut this up first, just so that I have some straight edges to work with. There you go. And simply put, I'm just going to fold it in half, make sure I have a nice straight edge. And I'm going to cut these down into my my 5-inch square so that I can do my half square triangles with them. So I'm going to use my cut edge as my guide, and I'm using my ruler to line up the cut edge, because this is a 6-inch ruler, and I've put it on number 5. All right, this is going to come in really handy, so don't chuck it away. It's going to straighten up this edge here, and again turn it, and I'm going to then again do the same thing with that straight edge. 5 there and that's another 5 there. So you can stack all of the fabric up that you have, and then yeah, so that's that there. So what I'm going to do now is just make that into a half square triangle. That's it, nice and simple. And then just stack them. This one as well. I can see a little peak that I didn't cut there, but that's not going to be a problem. I have also got this one as well. I'm going to cut these. I'm not sure what this one is actually the border from my Loving My Scrappy quilt that's on YouTube at the moment. So one of my channels, if you haven't seen that, look for Loving My Scrappy quilt and you would see the borders on that actually. So that's the border for this particular one, and again I'm lining up the number 5 on the edge of the fabric, and I am cutting, and what I'm going to do is fold it back in half. Well, no, I'll leave it open actually, because sometimes you just do lose. Make sure I get a nice straight edge. Get rid of that, and again the same applies. Now because I know it's not a lot, now I'm over, which it doesn't matter because I know the width of the actual fabric is 5 inches. So even if I'm like that, it doesn't really matter. The most important thing is that I use this edge here to line up, so I know that when I cut across it's actually 5. Okay, so again move that out so you can see, line that up there, and again you can fold it up, and that way you just do one cut and everything is done. But because I'm demonstrating this, just want to make it as clear as possible so that you understand what you need to do. One thing I believe in is making sure people understand, as that regular word you've heard throughout the lockdown, clarity, clarity, clarity. So again, point to point. Oh, I didn't put my blade down, and cut. Alright, so you've got 6 pieces there, so lovely. So that's what I do. So get all your pieces cut, and that way you are good to go. So let's go make, in fact before I do that, since I'm here, I'm sure I can get a couple of 4 inches out of this. 4 inches square. So again, get rid of that, trim that down, and this is what I tend to do. So as you know, I don't mind reusing the same fabric that's in the half square triangles and the squares. Yeah, so, and I think that's a really good thing to do, because then you can pick up your colors within it. So for example, something like that will go really nicely. Okay, so even if I were to use something like this, will go really nicely as well. Or even I were to use my pink, it will go really nicely on that. So that's what I mean. So I don't mind mixing and matching my colors. So if you know you've got extra that you can use for the 4-inch square and the 5-inch square, by all means go for it. I think the more of the color palette sort of thrown in there will be good. I almost cut a 5-inch square, so we just need a 4 on this one, just to make sure. There you go. So that's 4 there. Turn that around and just trim off the extra there. So it's nice 4-inch square. Then I'll go in the stack with the others. Yeah, I can do some more. Can I get a 4-inch out of that? Let's check and see. And no, can I get a 4-inch out of that? Now if I'm coming down to the wire for scraps, what I will do is join these two together and cut it out and make a 4-inch square. So that's something I will do. So I'll leave that there together. Even this one as well. This is more scraps here as well. I will do that also. So leave this here. So when I know I've run out of these sort of size, I can then just start choosing those to make up my squares. I've even got some here just to make sure you understand. So something like this, I would put these together, sew them together, cut out my 4-inch square or half square triangles, and as you can see, this is a Christmas tree there. So anything that you think blends in nicely, so if you want to put these two together, put these two together to make up your squares, you're more than welcome to. I would probably use more of these ones for the squares, to be honest, if I'm going to put them together. Yeah, because then I can pick up the colors in them to find other fabrics to make up the half square triangle. So I'll put that in that stash there as the possibility stash. These are the extra stash here, so that's what I'm going to do. So that goes there as well. So just try and keep everything nice and organized. So what I'm going to do, as you can see, this bit is a join bit there, so I'm going to trim that off so it's nice and flat. I could even rip that off there because that's just an extra piece, so I can tear that off there. So that's what I'll do with that. So I'll get all of these lined up by the machine, and then we will go over and I'll show you how to make this block now. So let's do that right now. Okay guys, let me show you how to make the block now. So I'm going to use this blue square that you actually see in here. So it's a 4-inch square, and I know I keep repeating myself, but I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. Okay, repetition is the key. So I'm going to take my half square triangle, I'm going to go with this particular color, and I'm going to put it right in the middle of that square. And that's important, because if you don't do that and you stitch it together like that, you're going to have a wonky triangle. So try not to do that. Alright, and so hold it right in the middle there, and the other one goes that way as well. Make sure it's nice and centered, and that looks correct for me. And what I'm going to do is take a little pin and put it there in the middle so it holds it. Make sure it's nice and flat, and I'm going to flip it over. Alright, and the reason why I flip it over is because then I can actually see where I need to sew. Now you can sew from this edge if you so wish to, it's entirely down to you. It doesn't really make a flying difference, to be honest, but I just prefer this side. Stick what's comfortable for you. Don't do things differently just because somebody else does it. You just do what you like. So I have my 1/4-inch seam presser foot on. It has a guide on it, so you use what you usually do. I think so. Let's get started. Put that down. And you know, I'm sewing and I'm saying to myself, this machine sounds like there's no thread in it. And I was absolutely right. So I have to rethread my machine. So let me do that and I shall be back. All right, let's try this again. It's just too much. Okay, right. So as I was saying, so let's stitch this together now and take it from there. Now, what you can do is chain piece all of these, if that makes sense to you, which is what I did also. So chain piece this particular stage, and then that way, you know, it's done. So that bit is done, and you can just literally move on to the next one. So what I will do now, just check it and make sure everything is okay. And with this particular one, what you need to do is cut off the edges. So I'm just going to clip these here. So again, you can have all of this by you. You can use the scissors, but because I'm demonstrating, what I usually do is get them all done for this particular stage and then stack them and use the rotary cutter and trim it. But you can do it with the scissors as well. Again, it's entirely down to you. You can make each square individually, or you can make them collectively in the reference to actually doing this particular stage, and then you know you are completed. Right, so let's open this back up, and again I'm not going to press, I'm just going to finger press it. Just lay the seams down, and in this particular case, because both fabrics are dark, there's no particular need to worry about sewing them, laying them to one particular side. It doesn't really matter what side you lay on. Okay, now I'm going to use another color on this one. At the end of the day, it is a scrappy quilt, so let's do that. Now the objective here is to make sure that your dog ears are sticking out, but evenly. So do not have your dog ears on just one side again, because the same applies. The square itself, or the shape of the square, will look wonky, wouldn't look straight. So if that's what you're looking for, that's fine. And what I mean by that is your actual point for your square. Let me get one of these and show you. If you notice, all of them are even. So all of them are even there to there. It's nicely even. So if you were not to center this properly, right in the middle, then it will come out something like this. Okay, so it's important that it's centered. So hopefully you get that. So again, the visual reminder is to center it, and the way you know that it's centered is to just look at both of those dog ears sticking out, and you can see that they're roughly equal. It doesn't have to be 100% equal, but you're looking for the closest equal visual sign that you can actually see, and I think that looks pretty good to me. All right, after you've done so many, you can then eyeball it and you would know. And again, I will pin this. Let's use a smaller pin, and I don't need for a big one there. Right, and then stitch it on. And again, the same applies. You're looking for 1/4 inch. Now, I don't backstitch. There's no need to backstitch, because at the end of the day, we're going to sew all of these blocks together. So I wouldn't worry about backstitching at the moment. What I would say though is to ensure that you do have a nice small stitch, i.e. 1 to 2. I wouldn't say 3 to 4. I think that might be too big, because we don't want it to come undone. Okay, so I'm just going to dig and get one of these ones. Now, if you wanted to do each of your block quite differently, which I'll do another block just to make sure we understand what we're doing, you can do that as well. But I'm going to stick with these colors because I'm kind of loving how this is looking actually. So I'll do that again there, making sure it's nicely centered. Don't worry about that peeking out, but that tells me I did not cut it nice and even when I trimmed that there, which I know because I didn't use my rotary cutter anyway. All right, so pin it yet again, go back to the machine and sew. Oh, it's telling me I need to put my needle down. My machine is so sensitive, which I love about it because it has these little reminder beeps that say, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. But I love it though. She is a beauty. So that is your block really. So nice and easy. And as you can see, your square is on point and those colors blend together quite beautifully. Okay, so that is it. So let's do another one very quickly. So I'm going to go with this one here and I'm going to pick up this particular color pattern because it'll go nicely with that one. So again, line it up, make sure it's nicely centered, and again it isn't. Move it around. Now you can do two ways. You can either fold it and crease it, okay, and that way you don't have to eyeball. You know exactly where the center is and you just put it down, raw edge to raw edge, and you lay it right in the middle and you know you're there. Okay, and you can do that right at the machine. All right, and the next one as well. Okay, lovely. And again, pin. Okay, I'm slightly off there, but I'm going to fix that when I'm at the machine itself. I'm just making sure that I did front sides together. And just move that up rather than going at the machine when I'm sewing to do it, because sometimes I hate just having to move the things around. Right, lovely. And I'm going to sew. And switch that around. Right, here we go. Switch that off. Next side. Okay, and just check that. I think I slightly missed that there. I can see that. So I'm just going to put that down again and do it another time. There we go. That's better. I think I need to put my glasses on, definitely. Right, same applies. So we can remove the pin or leave the pin down there and then turn it this side so you can see it and just trim that off. As you can see, it doesn't take long to make the blocks at all. Imagine putting these together. That is what it's going to look like. So quite easy, really. I think it's going to look really beautiful. That's what I think anyway. So there you go. Right, so open this out. And that's the shape you're looking for. And those colors look really nice together. And I think I'm going to go with this one here. And see what it looks like on it. Yeah, I'll go for it. I will go for it and see what happens. Again, making sure that your dog ears line up nicely. And again, you can do the same for this one. You can simply fold it, crease it, and then you know it's on there equally. But I'm going to eyeball it and go for it. Yep, and I think I have done it correctly. Sew that together, cut that off, fold it back, finger press, always finger press. Try not to iron your blocks or your squares at the moment. Just leave it till the end really. That's what I tend to do because I do one rhythm. So I cut all together, I make all of my first stages together to put those half square triangles on the square, and then I do the next set, and then I go to the ironing board. And then again, do not use a really hot iron on it. Yeah, we do not want to distort the shape of the square. So I just use a warm iron because remember, it's not finished yet. Yeah, it's not finished. We've still got more sewing to do. So don't put a really hot iron in it. Don't do that, because a really hot iron can actually take the shape away, and I can see my camera shaking from this, so I'm gonna have to fix that for the next one. Right, so that is what our block looks like. So that's 2 blocks there. So what we're going to do now is to trim these down to a 6 1/4 inch square. All right, so we'll trim them down and I will show you what that looks like. So let me show you that quickly now, and then yeah. So, but before I go, what I would say to you is that if you are enjoying this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, and so we can do and work together and make some beautiful quilts. I really enjoy doing these tutorials. Actually, they're actually fun for me, and I like hearing your feedback and your opinions and you sharing your ideas with me. Okay, so let me show you how to square up the block so you have an idea of what to do. So I'm using a 11-inch square ruler, and within this ruler I have all the other measurements in reference to 1, 1.5, 2, 3, 4, etc., all the way up to 11, so that I can square sort of sizes out to this particular square. All right, so but what we're going to pay very close attention to is the line running straight through the ruler from point to point, and hopefully you can see that line running through there. So you're going to take your square and we're going to square it up to 6 1/4. Now obviously the block unfinished, in terms of the size that it stitches up to, comes up roughly to about 7, 7 1/4, 7 1/2, etc., depending. This one actually is, not tell you the exact size, it is 7 1/4 there, and it's 7 1/2 or 7 3/4 there. All right, so it's very much uneven, so we need to trim this down to 6 1/4. And I kind of like that size because it gives me a nice sized block once all 4 is stitched together. So to do this, we need to first line up this line in the middle here, from that point to that point there. That's the first thing you need to do. Then you need to look at your square itself and say, right, okay, I have enough room on this side, I have room enough there, I have room enough there and there, so that I can make sure and angle this particular ruler in the middle, so that I know that I can get 6 1/4 there. So I know I've got space here already. I can see it out to the edge. I can see that this area here is beyond 6 1/4. So I'm just going to come down so I have enough room. I can see my line is there, correct, and I can see my line is nice at the tip there, nice and correct. So I'm going to make my first cut. What you can also do before I cut is just look at the equated size on each there, on each of these points here, where the actual square makes the point. So if you know you've got enough on that size, and you can use your measurements to guide you. All right, so you're looking at the measurements at the top there, the measurements at the top there as well. So on this particular size, it tells me I've got about 1/2 inch there from that point. It tells me here I've also got 1 inch, so it's quite wide at this side, and from this particular point as well is the same thing, as well as this one. It gives me the same amount from this side to this side there. So then you know that you've got to cut fairly a good amount off of it in order to make this correct. So I'm going to make my first cut, and obviously I'll have to end up turning a few times, but I'm making sure that's there, that line is there, and that line is there. So here we go. So I'm going to do my first cut there, and my other cut there. So remember, we are cutting it down to 6 1/4. So I've made 2 cuts now, so I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to turn it again. All right, that's a freshly cut line, and that's a freshly cut line. So what I'm going to do now is to lay the 6 1/4 line on the cut fabric there on that cut square, because I know that's fresh. And when I say fresh, it's freshly cut. And then the one at the bottom here, I'm going to lay down there as well. So 6 1/4 there. And I can see already that if I'm lining it up, I'm coming down, it tells me I've still got quite a lot of room because this square is quite big. So I'm just gonna go up again, and I'm gonna make sure this time that my measurement is right there. So I've got about, I would say, 1/2 inch from there, and 1/2 inch from there, and 1/2 inch from there, and 1/2 inch from there. So I know my block's going to be fine now. So I'm going to make my next cut, my other cut as well. Okay, so I know my block is still too big because it's still not 6 1/4. Still got a little bit more to go. So I'm going to turn it again, right, because I know these two lines are freshly cut. So I'm going to turn it again. So again, I'm going to lay up now 6 1/4 there at the top, and I'm going to come down 6 1/4 there. Right, so I know I've got a little bit more to trim off on this side, so I'm going to go I think I slightly moved it. Let me make sure it's back to position before I continue. Lovely. Just going to double check that it's all well and good. So 6 1/4 there. I'll check that line there. 6 1/4. I can see I'm slightly off at the bottom here, so I'm going to turn this up on that side. Right, so I can see there's a little trimming just there that needs cutting off. Just going to make sure there's none on this side as well. Just a little trimming that needed coming off. So just take your time and do it properly. Okay, so let me just clear this away. So that's how you cut the block down. All right, so let's give you a quick example to lay out. So you'll have that one there. So we're going to use this as our measurement in terms of what we're going to try and match up first. So put that there. I'm going to go with that one there. No, I don't like that one. I'm going to go with that one there, and I'm going to go with that one there. Alright, and you get a beautiful X in the middle. You can see that X on point there. So there you go. Alright, if we wanted to turn the block, we can use the wider half a square triangle, because remember, this is the first cut that we made when we stitched the triangle on. This was the first triangle that we stitched on. So then you can get a square in the middle. Alright, so that's what it looks like. So it will be for every other will then be added on. In order to get that square. Right, so you can get the square there, and you'll have your you'll get your X there, and then you will get your square here. So that's what will happen throughout the whole block. You'll see X's and squares. So hopefully that makes sense to you. But again, next week I will go through it again, and all the blocks will be trimmed by then, and then we will start putting them together. So we will have them trimmed, and we'll start laying them out and playing around with it, and then we'll stitch them together and see what it looks like. Okay, so see you next week. Happy quilting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.